Okay, so that last video that you saw in this series, which would have been the first video of this series, which was the nostalgia series, the series which is about fragrances that I wore in the 90s, and I think I'm doing a list of 10, and which were probably prominent in the 90s, but not necessarily released in the 90s. So well, I guess you may have noticed that in that first video I was a bit excited, more excited than usual, because the first video was Drakkar Noir. And what can you say? That thing's a legend, right? And I hadn't smelt it, honestly. Hadn't smelt it for 27 years. And all of a sudden to spray it on my arm and smell it was like, you know, it was like 88 miles an hour with in a car with a flux capacitor, let's just say. I went back in time. I sat down and thought, oh my goodness, all of the experiences that are tied to that particular scent profile. A lot of them awkward. Yeah. So we move on, because that was my first, second, third, and fourth fragrance, and I wore that exclusively for a period of about 6 years. And then when I was 16, funnily enough, I don't know how or why I purchased this fragrance. I just did. Maybe it was the box and the design of the box and all the colors on it, because I don't think I smelled it. I just saw it and I went, you know what? I can afford that one, so I'm going to buy that one, because all the other ones were more expensive than this. And so I did, and I purchased it. And I finished it and I repurchased it because it got re-released. It got discontinued, then it got re-released, and I found a vintage bottle of it, and that's what I got now. Now I'm going to show you what it is. It is this one right here. It is this blue cigar shaped bottle. This is a small one, but this is Havana by Aramis. Legendary. It should be a staple in your collection if you are someone who really likes really nice fragrances. Yeah, a lot of talk about this one. And from what I know, when they did originally discontinue the ones that were shaped in this bottle, there was such an uproar from the community that they asked Aramis to bring it back. And so they did, in that gentleman's collection with the different bottle, which I have somewhere else in the house. But we're talking about this one today because this is the vintage bottle, and it's slightly different, yeah. Released in, I don't know, 1994? I think it was released in 1994, and so I must have bought it the year that it was released. That's probably why I found it at the shops. Unfortunately, nobody I knew in my age bracket was actually wearing this. It did take me a couple of years, I think, to get through this one bottle, because after being used to something like Drakkar Noir for a very long time, Havana was just absolutely on the other side of the world, right? It just didn't smell like Drakkar. How can it be a fragrance if it doesn't smell like Drakkar? That was really weird. But let's give it a bit of a spritz. Just the worst atomizer. Okay, I think I just breathed some of that in. Alcoholic. Okay, put that there. Yes, this more pungent. If you think about it long enough, it's kind of got this disgusting vibe to it. It's this thing that I get sometimes from some fragrances, especially the old school ones that were kind of more bitter in their take. There's got to be a note somewhere. I think I once described it as a wealthy person's saliva. It has the same vibe as my old bottle of Pour Louis by Oscar de la Renta. It's got that same vibe. So I wouldn't be surprised if I found out that they share a similar note or an accord or something like that, because Yeah, it does give you that in the very beginning of it as well, and especially if you sniff it straight out of the bottle and the cap itself. But it does dry down, and that does disappear, and it just becomes this wonderfully beautiful, damp and aromatic, drying, in the process of drying tobacco leaf kind of smell. And going back to this, I did wear this throughout a summer, another summer, 2 summers maybe, and heading into a winter as well. Wow, this is also taking me back. I used to sit on a shelf behind my bedroom door, and it was just there in this bigger version of this one. This is only a 30 ml, but I did have the 100 ml of this, and it's a big blue bottle. And I remember when I finished it, because it was so difficult for me at that point in my life, because I would have been maybe just 17 or 18, to actually wear something like this. It wasn't really a typical teenager scent, and I don't think it is still. And I'd be very comfortable wearing it right now with all the grays that I have going on. But back then, it was still nice enough for me to wear, but I would really need to will myself into it. And when I did, I was rewarded, but it was just that initial wealthy person saliva note that I couldn't sort of get past sometimes. It just wasn't enough. And I'd probably have to, again, sneak into my dad's room and spray myself with the, oh, godforsaken Brute 33. Ooh, let's not talk about that. That's for a different video. But Havana Aramis, my second fragrance that I ever purchased. It was the fragrance of my sort of early to mid 90s, sort of early-ish mid 90s, 94, 95, something like that. And that's what I did. I had this for a while, and I think I went on a bit of a hiatus because I still had Drakkar somewhere. I can't remember if I still had Drakkar somewhere or if I just used to go and spritz Brute 30. Brute. I can't even finish saying the name of that fragrance. It is tied to a scent memory that is really, really pungent in a bad way. And I might elaborate further on that in a separate video, but for now, this, I have mentioned it before that I think it's repurchase worthy. Yes, it is. It's been discontinued again, but it's still available. I think stocks are running out, and I'm not sure that the community is going to ask for it to be undiscontinued again, because probably most of the people that really riled up and contacted Aramis and asked for it to be, re-released are probably dead because they're really, really old. So it's going to be gone, and you're not going to be able to get it at the prices that they used to be available at. I remember that Tuscany per Uomo, which is one of the other ones that Aramis has in their line, that used to be cheap as chips, but it is super expensive and it's getting really hard to find. And I'm surprised at the prices. Like, you can't find it cheaper than department store prices. But anyway, that's not to my taste. Too similar to the original Aramis Pour Homme. Anyway, Havana by Aramis is another one. So before I get overly taken back to the time of yesteryear, and I'm wearing my most Havana-ish kind of shirt, but that's beside the point. Another point I wanted to make about this fragrance is that it's too unique to be dated. I think there are other fragrances that have tobacco as their prominent sort of note or accord, but none of them are sort of similar to this. They take a different approach to the tobacco. This one takes that bitter approach, the actual tobacco approach. There's I think only one. There's like Montana. There's that fragrance by Montana, and that's kind of similar to this. And in some respects, it's a little bit more wearable than this is. But that's what makes this a little bit better, is that it's a bit more unique than that is. and I'll give this the nod over that one. Maybe 5 times out of 7. The other tobacco fragrances that I've had the pleasure of owning and wearing and smelling, they all take a sort of like a similar approach. They're a little bit more effervescent, they're a bit more sweet, they take the sort of sweetness and the molasses of the tobacco into play, or some of them actually go towards the smell of tobacco on you if you were a smoker and you had bad breath, and then you didn't speak, but then you could smell the tobacco sort of radiating off you because you had it on your person all the time, so it's been infused into your skin. No, I don't, not that I dislike that. It's got its time and place, which isn't 2021, by the way. But this can be, and coming up to, I mean, it is summer now, so it's definitely wearable for me, because I particularly like this on a really humid kind of night, when I know I don't do seasons, but this would be for when it's humid and I don't have air conditioning and I just want to sit and bathe in the scent cloud of this stuff. So that's what I use it for. Not all the time, but I would envisage that this would be that kind of vibe. And I would probably say that going out on a warm, balmy night would be great to have this on. It would be great to have this on if you went out on a warm and balmy night with friends. It would just be perfect. It would be radiating, and you can have some cocktails with it. It would go great. I'm just trying to think up the scene that it would be in, and that would be the scene. That would be the scene. I don't see this as a suit and tie kind of fragrance. It doesn't really strike me as something that you would dress up formally. It's, again, a nighttime fragrance. I don't know why I gravitate towards that, but it's a party. It's not a soiree, but it's like a casual party. It's an unofficial party. And that's what I get from this. And that's probably because that's how I used it back in the day at unofficial parties, because I probably would have been too young to get into any official parties at the time. So I was wearing this and snuck into parties unofficially. Probably my bias showing there with regards to this scent and the memories that I have with it. Yes. Definitely some irresponsible drinking going on with that. Yes. But anyway, my second ever fragrance, Havana by Aramis. I don't know what kind of teen gravitates towards this, but again, it was a blind buy, and because I spent money on it, I wore it mostly out of spite, but I did grow to like it and enjoy it, and now that I'm older, I really appreciate it, what it was, and it's so unique that I think if I wore a different fragrance during that time of my youth, it would have been muddled with all the other guys around my age who were wearing those kinds of fragrances, and mine and theirs, I wouldn't have been able to tell it apart, right? I know my friend wore that and I wore this, right? And these two didn't really, you know, like everybody else's fragrances was sort of similar because all the CK stuff was being really popular at that time. D&G Pour Homme was being very popular at that time. But this was not popular in my age bracket at that time. But I wore it. And that's why I have vivid memories coming back whenever I have a sniff of it. So there you go. And I think that you could probably wear it now. I don't smell this all that often, and I don't hear it being talked about all that often either. And I don't think it's dated because it's too unique to be dated. When something can't really be time stamped, then it's the very definition of timeless. And I've said that before, and I'll say it again, and just like I did. So I'm ranting, but I'm rambling, but that's my honest opinion. Thanks again for watching. Stay tuned for the next one. If you wanted to see some of the other series that I did with regards to fragrances that I've repurchased, which I did mention this on and I talk about briefly as well, go ahead and watch that and do all the things that make this channel grow so that I can create more content. All right, thanks again everybody, and thank you for watching.